He absolutely loved baseball and everything that he brought. And I feel that sports was in his life for a long, long time. So the fact that he had people support him and to be able to bring, the Expos and the Dodgers, pretty amazing.
Welcome to episode 359 of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. I'm Joe McFarland. Did we just witness the greatest World Series of all time? Yes, there's some recency bias involved here, but it has to be pretty darn close, no? And that says a lot coming from a lifelong Blue Jays fan. As heartbreaking as it was to see the Los Angeles Dodgers come away with the championship, I'm weirdly in a place of zen about what we witnessed in the Great Toronto Run. If you head to albertadugoutstories.com and saskatchewandugoutstories.com, our Ian Wilson put together an outstanding editorial wrapping up the season and the impact on the Canadian game. One thing I'd like to add to the mix is that this team was just plain fun to watch and, might I even say, likable. They truly embodied being Canada's team and seemingly had an identity that was almost like being a hockey team's. Whether it was Bo Bichette playing on one leg, or George Springer grimacing through every swing, or Ernie Clement and his laundry list of injuries he was playing through, which prompted me to think, at the end of the season, is John Schneider just going to come out and say Ernie Clement was playing on a broken clavicle? Baseball fans from coast to coast to coast gravitated towards this team in a way I don't think we've seen before. And it was infectious. And when Shane Bieber forgoes free agency to opt into his contract with the Blue Jays to come back, one has to wonder what message that sends to the fans, to the organization, and to the rest of the baseball world. Simply put, they want to run it back together. So it'll be a fun offseason around Canada's team, to say the very least. Sticking in the majors, former Okotoks Dogs hurler Andrew Kittredge is on the move again. After being traded from Baltimore to the Chicago Cubs at the trade deadline, the Cubs have sent him back to the Orioles in a trade this past week. Kittredge went 4-3 with a 3.40 ERA and 54 relief appearances, split between the two teams during the regular season. Then he made 5 playoff appearances for the Cubs. We are getting closer to MLB free agency, and some big names will be on the market, including Calgary's Michael Soroka. We'll keep tabs on all the movement and any connections to the Prairies in the days and weeks ahead. Baseball Canada unveiling its roster for the 2026 WBSC Copa America. Friends of the show, Landon Barassa and Jordan Procession, will be part of the contingent heading to Panama November 13th to 17th. Closer to home, some big news coming from the Canadian College Baseball Conference as the spring college circuit will move to 9 teams in 2026. They're adding a new team from UBC to be called the University Baseball Club, and the head coach will be Barhead's own Devery Vandecurie. The CCBC is also extending the regular season by an extra weekend, while the CCBC World Series won't feature every team this year. Instead, just the top 6 regular season teams will be invited. Head to albertadugoutstories.com for the latest on that story. Over to Okotoks now, where some cool video is being shown off by the Dogs on their social media accounts. One is the expansion to the Duvernay Fieldhouse for their state-of-the-art hitting and pitching facility. The other is for Section 112, a new seating area on the east side by the berm. The team says the impact on the berm seating will be limited. Construction will be wrapped up for the start of the 2026 WCBL season. Registration is now open for the Road to Okotoks National Academy Championship. The inaugural Morneau Cup will be held in mid-July next year. In case you missed that news, listen to episode 354, where we had Tyler Hollick on the program, and we're already making plans on how we'll be covering the event next summer. The Canadian Baseball Network unveiling its all-Canadian college first team this week, which features a trio of Dogs Academy alumni and friends of the show. Connor Croson, Nash Kroll, and Jimmy Dion were selected to the team, as were former Fort McMurray Giants stars Jordan Bach and Alfonso Villalobos, as well as Saskatoon's own Corey Waters. We have a story up on our website looking back at all 3 teams and their connections to Alberta and Saskatchewan. Many eyes in the baseball world will be glued to the Women's Pro Baseball League's first ever draft, which is now scheduled for November 20th. The new league will have 4 teams in its first season, with homes in Boston, Los Angeles, New York, and San Francisco. A few familiar names are hoping to get called, including Alberta's Sydney Barry and Madison Willen, and Saskatchewan's Addie Zebart. We'll keep you posted on the results as they roll in a couple weeks' time. The Baseball Alberta Elite League's inaugural All-BAEL team has been unveiled. The team includes Carter Moffat, Ethan Savage, Matthew Schneider, Hudson Harding, and Declan Wurz, among others. We'll be looking to chat with a few of those named in the weeks ahead. On the commitment front, Coronation native and Sylvan Lake Gulls prep product Braxton Bussing is heading to Colby Community College. St. Joe's Academy outfielder Isaac Nakonechny has signed on with Butler Community College. Vauxhall Academy product Luke Wheatley will head to Texas State University, and over in Saskatchewan, Barrie's Academy utility man Reese Bronze will join Bussing at Colby. On to this week's guests now, and as promised, we wanted to celebrate the Alberta Sports Hall of Fame's class of 2025 back in September. We had the best of intentions to head to Red Deer for the festivities, however, family sicknesses got in the way. So over the last few weeks, we've been catching up with a few people involved, and because of how good each of those conversations have been, we're splitting this into 2 episodes. We'll start things off with Hall of Fame Executive Director Tracey Kinsella. She admits this special class was quite the undertaking, as the goal was to celebrate the many people in sport whose contributions extended beyond the scoreboard. After many deliberations, they landed on the Legends Unveiled theme, and the weekend party went off without a hitch. Tracey, thanks so much for joining us here on the show.
Yes, thanks so much for having us.
Legends Unveiled was held September 27th at the Alberta Sports Hall of Fame and Museum. Let's go back to the beginning on the idea of Legends Unveiled, though. Walk us through how it all came to be originally.
Okay, so it's kind of interesting. We had a in, and he was a Flames fan. I've no time, I'm an Oilers fan, but anywho, he's a Flames fan, and he said something about where's Jerome McGinley, and then the answer is he's never been nominated. Mm-hmm. So that led to this great big discussion: who else should be in our Hall of Fame and has maybe or hasn't been nominated, or the process hasn't been identified properly. So it led to this bigger conversation. And we are here, our mandate and why we exist is to honor Alberta sports legends, builders, teams, athletes. So we struck a provincial committee. We had 8 members from across the province, some alumni, some not, some media, some educators, all through. And we just came together over the course of probably a year, a lot of meetings, and brought the list. And just thought, okay, we started off with, literally hundreds and worthy Albertans to be inducted, and then went from there. And just, okay, we got to start somewhere. So we discussed coming up with 25 this year, and it's our 25th anniversary of the Alberta Sports Hall of Fame at this location here in Red Deer. So we thought 25 and 25 legends. Let's start. Let's just, at some point, you got to just push the button and go. And that's kind of how it began. And we're going to continue.
Very cool. It's a pretty pronounced list. You mentioned it. You probably had hundreds on the original list. How challenging was that to go through and be like, oh man, there's some really good people who are going to miss out this time around, unfortunately?
That's exactly what we did. So when the subcommittee, what their 25 that they wanted to bring forward, we then vetted it through our selection committee, our normal committee, also an independent committee of the Alberta Sports Hall of Fame, and went through that 25 list with them. And then after that, once they approved that list, then it went to the board of directors and was approved after that. And so what's next? Another 25. We have a milestone coming up in 2027. So part of me is kind of jumping ahead. But you're right, there's a lot of great names left off.
How cool was it in your eyes to go down memory lane, in a sense, to look back at all the recognitions and all the things all these new inductees had accomplished, and even those who didn't make it this time around in their respective communities?
it was it was such a great experience to go through this. Just impact that some of them had on sport in Alberta. Red Pollard, for example, rode Seabiscuit,
Mm-hmm.
like the most famous, the most famous horses. Appreciation for some of these barriers that these athletes and builders broke back in, sometimes 50 to 70 years.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What's it like making that phone call to an inductee or their family and saying, hey, we have this idea and we'd love for you to be a part of this?
It's the best. Literally the absolute best. And in early December, when we will announce the new class of 2026 for our regular, we will do this again. So this one made it a little bit more special because a lot of these members on here moment that they would ever be inducted. They're not necessarily Olympians that are household names. So it just seemed to make it a little bit more special.
Take us back to September 27th and the ceremony itself. How did it go? What were some of the highlights in your eyes?
The ceremony was wonderful. We had unpacked Hall of Fame here, right here at our facility. We had another night in attendance to welcome this new class. The event to just be part of that and to be in the room with 25. We had representation from 20 of the families or the inductees themselves, and the sharing of stories, tears. Like there actually was tears from a couple of the members that when they recounted their sport history and talking it through, just how special it was to be that. Oh my goodness. And then, the icing on the cake really is in our facility.
Mm-hmm.
We just love to showcase our Hall of Fame every time we get a chance. And this was the largest event we've ever hosted here, but went over just exceptional.
That is wonderful to hear. And again, apologies not being able to make it. It's just sometimes daycare is not the greatest thing when it comes to germ factories are concerned anyways. Final question for you, Tracey. As you look ahead, you mentioned December and the new class to be officially unveiled as well. What excites you the most about what's coming up in the days, weeks, months, and frankly, years ahead at the Alberta Sports Hall of Fame and Museum?
I've seen the list of slate that the selection committee is considering already for their deliberations later this fall. And there is, again, another outstanding class. I'm not sure how they will choose. It's going to be difficult. Forward already to that announcement in December. The event will be June 6th. But most importantly, we are embarking on a here at the Hall of Fame. So we are going to be kicking off a capital campaign for a whole new and reimagined Hall of Fame.
Wow. Can you give us a little
Very exciting.
Give us a little bit of a snapshot as to what you're envisioning with that idea.
So I envision, honest to goodness, when you walk in the door, you're going to look around and be, wow. And for anybody who's toured Halls of Fame, is my guilty pleasure. When I walked into some of the Halls of Fame, the big ones, the pro football, Cooperstown, walked in and felt like I'm somewhere special. Our guests are going to have that exact same experience here. We will update to ensure we can meet the needs of the ever-changing visitor. Our youth are our visitors, and we have to keep up. We're a little bit behind. We're a little tired here at our facility. It's 20 years old. Little interactives have changed. The visitor experience has changed, and we just are ready to on board and take us right to the next level.
We're looking forward to it and can't wait to come up for a visit again in the not too distant future. Tracy, again, congratulations on an outstanding idea with the Legends Unveiled held earlier. Best of luck as you go through the deliberations for the class of 2026. And thank you again so much for coming on and sharing the story of the Alberta Sports Hall of Fame and Museum.
Thank you so much, Joe. Have a great day.
Next up, we celebrate the legacy of Coaldale's Reno Lizzi. He was affectionately known as Mr. Baseball in Lethbridge, first bringing the Lakers to town as part of the Alberta Major Baseball League, before helping bring the first minor league baseball team to the province with Lethbridge Expos in 1975. 2 years later, the Lethbridge Dodgers suited up, bringing 3 Pioneer League championships to the city in 4 years. Lizzi is the namesake of an annual award through Vauxhall Academy and is a member of the Lethbridge Sports Hall of Fame. He passed away in 2005, but his daughter Brenda says he would have been proud to be recognized in such a way.
Brenda, thanks so much for joining us here on the show.
It's a pleasure, Joe. Thank you.
What an amazing time it was a couple of weeks ago. The Alberta Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Special because a man special to your heart. His name is now in the Alberta Sports Hall of Fame. Take us back to the very beginning, though, when you got that phone call telling you that Reno was being inducted into the Alberta Sports Hall of Fame, and what went through your mind?
So my sister got the call, and so she was able to call the rest of the family. Overwhelmed. The fact that somebody nominated Dad, and the fact that somebody remembered, because it's been a while. Baseball, of course, still lives and breathes in Alberta, but it's a great way to celebrate everything that he gave to baseball and to Alberta. So he would be super honored, and we are as a family.
I was going to ask about the family side of it. Like, was there celebration and champagne, so to speak, or was it kind of one of those things where you're almost in shock to a certain extent because so much time had passed?
I would say it was a little bit of a shock. And then the funny thing is we found out a few things about our father that we didn't know earlier in his life, like before the Lethbridge Lakers and baseball and him playing. And so huge, huge honor. And you are right, it's been 20 years since Dad's been gone. So it's amazing.
You kind of alluded to it. What do you think his reaction would have been?
Totally overwhelmed. I think surprised that he would be recognized for something that, I mean, he loved. He absolutely loved baseball and everything that he brought. And I feel that sports was in his life for a long, long time. So the fact that he had people support him and to be able to bring, I mean, the Expos and the Dodgers, pretty amazing.
Absolutely. What did it mean to you and the fam and everyone just to have him recognized in this way? Because it's so challenging in the sense of, especially doing it posthumously and having, to kind of relive some of that again so long after the fact.
Amazing. We all were just talking about all different stories about Dad and different stories of for me being at the stadium
Mhm.
and just meeting all the people and just how generous and wonderful Dad was. And it's a really great feeling to be able to talk about him so much again and that people will remember him, which is unbelievable.
Mhm. He brought fast pitch. You mentioned the Lethbridge Lakers as an example. He's the reason minor league baseball even came to Alberta in the first place with that first team back in 75 with the Expos. Did he
Yes.
share much in the way for when he was alive? Did he share much in the way of why he loved baseball so much?
I asked my mom that. I don't really know. I tried to think, did it have anything to do with like the Brooklyn Dodgers with Sandy Koufax, maybe Jackie Robinson, or maybe because he was a player himself and he just loved it. It's kind of a mystery to us, actually.
That's
A good one,
interesting.
though.
That is interesting. I mean, at the same time, he became so integral to the growth of baseball, right? And sport in general. How proud was he of being able to do that in the baseball sphere in Alberta and especially it sounds like I'm very proud of being able to do that in Lethbridge.
Yes. So you got to think like what, 30, 40,000 people in Lethbridge.
Mhm.
And to be able to do that, and it was supported. I mean, the young men that came to Lethbridge were billeted out. So you've got to think of all these families that took in these young ball players, and it was successful. And then the Dodgers on top of it, and for as long as they were in Lethbridge. Pretty amazing for such a small town that he was able to do that. But I do feel that when my dad had a dream, kind of like in Field of Dreams, build it and they will come.
Well, and they sure did, and not just the fans, but also the players. You and I were talking off air about some of the memories. I mean, these teams were happening, especially the minor league teams, during your formative years. You're 11,
Yes.
12, 13, and here's Andre Dawson. You were naming names like going, I knew that guy. I knew that guy. How cool was it to be at the ground floor and seeing this as a young kid?
Unbelievable. And to think that they were just young, I don't even know how old they were, maybe 17, 18, 19 years old, and they made it to the show. And to think that they would have such fond memories of Lethbridge, um, super important to our whole family, and of course to Dad to be so proud.
Mhm. Do you have a favorite memory at the ballpark or favorite player that you remember going like that's the one dude who you kind of always gravitated to as an example?
Super good question. I don't think so. I don't think there was anybody that was extra special that would make me go, oh, I really remember that. I just remember Dad being so maybe great to these kids, knowing too that they were away from their family. I mean, they were in a small town in Canada.
I know your dad has an award or a scholarship named after him at Vauxhall Academy, as an example. He's a member of the Lethbridge Sports Hall of Fame as well. What's it mean to your family to have his name and the memory of all he did in that community and around Southern Alberta and sports in general live on?
The Vauxhall, that I can't even put into words what that means to us and to these young kids. So it was Yukio and Barbara Kitagawa that basically came up with the idea. My dad made an impression and was a mentor to Yukio years and years ago and bought newspapers from him, which is a good story about basically how my dad treated everybody with kindness, generosity, and made him feel great. So for the Kitagawas to remember that and to do a scholarship and a bursary under for dad's name, eh, yeah, I can't even put into words what it means to our family. I mean, that's a forever. And these kids that win, they're good athletes. They have to be good in school and they have to be a part of the community and do things for the community, which is like my dad. So that's pretty amazing.
You mentioned something about it wasn't just the players. Like I think we a lot of people focus on the players, but there are people behind the scenes that are doing things and people who are behind the scenes that I know even in the baseball circles today have been involved for 30, 40, 50 years, right? Like talk about the relationships and the importance that your dad was able to parlay that away from the field and being able to have those volunteers, those billets, all those people that made the season go year after year.
Hands down, I think that Dad and the group of gentlemen that were part of the team that put in their heart, like we were all there every summer, my mom, everybody. And when you're as passionate as my dad was, I think people just wanted to be a part of it, right? So, all like you said, billets, food, making these kids feel comfortable. It's you touch people's lives and you don't really realize how people's lives are touched until they come back and tell you the stories. And being a daughter, wow, right? Our family. I mean, we knew dad was great because he was our dad, but to know that people knew Reno and he just had a light. He would walk into a room, say hi to everybody. It just, you wanted to maybe to be around him. So what he did for the community and for Lethbridge, and you got to think of all the people that billeted these kids that made it to the show. I mean, it's pretty great.
Mhm. Speaking of pretty great, no man will ever say that he's not or every man will say he's nothing without the family behind the scenes. You're one of five. What was it like growing up in that household, knowing that, hey, dad's going to be pretty busy during the summer when you guys are typically off for school and that kind of thing?
Yes. So the great thing is we all walked to the ballpark. That's how close we were to the ballpark. So being a part of that and the stories, and we entertained a lot. Well,
Mm.
my mom, let's be honest, did a lot of that. So, summer for us, sure, dad was at the ballpark and he owned a clothing store, but to have these players or these coaches um, come to the house and you were able to hear these stories and big part of all our lives, big part of all our lives. So it I hate to say it was normal, but it would be normal maybe to have a Jimmy Lefevre, or lots of people might not know these names, but
Mhm.
these baseball players from way back that were sitting in our home. It's pretty great. Great. It was amazing stories, amazing. It was great.
And I assume baseball is still a very big part of the family life.
My biggest fan, I think the biggest fan would be my mom, and of course my brothers and our nieces and nephews. Definitely, it has trickled down his passion, his kindness, his generosity. He was a big part of my nieces, of course us, but of course the grandchildren.
hmm
So pretty
Couple,
lucky.
couple more for you.
Yes.
How cool was it to see the Dodgers come to Lethbridge? Because I know your dad was a big Dodgers fan.
Uh, I can't say this for truth, but I bet he cried with happiness. Pretty great because if when you think about maybe, I mean, I don't know how young he was when he became, of course, a Brooklyn Dodger fan first. Um, because of who he was, and I would say his connections and just how people knew him, that's how we got the Dodgers. So for my dad, you know what, I can't even put into words how he felt. It must have been unbelievable.
I bet. And the final one, take us to September 27th and the day that he gets inducted.
Mm.
What's going through everybody's mind and what's it like kind of going through the ceremony and even afterwards and getting to talk to people and get to share the legacy of your dad?
I think me not being there, but my brothers, sisters, nieces, and nephews were there. I think the stories of people that remembered Dad or that were a part of it, or um, it's amazing, right? Because
Mm.
it's to think that he would leave an imprint on people in Lethbridge, but of course in Alberta and baseball and sport in general, and truly his generosity. So overwhelming for my family that was there for sure. And my mom was there, which is really, really great.
That is so cool. Well, Brenda, really appreciate you going on a trip down memory lane with us, sharing a little bit about your dad, and again, congratulations to you and the entire family, and to Reno's legacy as well. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your story with us.
Fantastic. Thanks, Joe. Have a super good day and go Jays, go!
And our final inductee to be recognized on this episode is Edmonton's Mel Kowalchuk. He might be best remembered for his efforts in bringing AAA baseball to Alberta with the Edmonton Trappers in 1981. He was also the former president of the Alberta Major Baseball League's Edmonton Tigers and had actually tried to bring the Pioneer League to the provincial capital prior to the Trappers' opportunity. He even bought the Calgary Expos franchise in 1984, hoping to operate them out of Lethbridge after the Cannons came to Calgary, but unfortunately that didn't work out and the team was moved to Salt Lake City instead. Kowalchuk was always heavily involved in sports across Edmonton, including soccer. We chatted with his son Darin about how Mel is feeling after the induction ceremony. Darin, thanks so much for joining us here on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
2025 Alberta Sports Hall of Fame inductee Mel Kowalchuk. What comes to mind when you hear that now that we're a couple of weeks removed from the official ceremony?
Grateful. And growing up around that and seeing what my dad's accomplished and to be honored in the Alberta Sports Hall of Fame, he's always wanted that, and to finally, get in there, it's been, for him, it's been over the moon. He's been excited and he's so, happy with it. And so are we. Like, it's deserving from our end that he should be recognized for what he's contributed to baseball in Alberta.
Take us back to that phone call and what goes, was the family kicking around at the time? Like, how did you guys find out? And what was the reaction in the moment when you find out, hey, your dad's going to be a part of this massive class and is really honoring a lot of the sports past in this province?
Yeah, getting so Terry Jones tracked me down, and same with Tracey from the Alberta Sports Hall of Fame. Reached out to me because we've been in contact. I'm now living in BC. My dad is living in Calgary by himself, and for them to track me down and see that email that he's being elected to the Alberta Sports Hall of Fame, I was like happy and ecstatic and over the moon. I've been kind of waiting for that call. And then when I told him, he was so happy too. So, yeah, we were both just so happy, and it's just him and myself right now. So there's no other real family. We have extended family who's worked in baseball as well, and people who worked with the Trappers in those days, and they know, and they were all happy and saying that was well deserving. So everybody was excited that it's connected to Mel on that.
I can only imagine. So looking back on it, I mean, he had quite the journey in sports. Obviously the baseball thing, but I know he was involved in soccer and a bunch of other things. Looking back on it, what made him love the game and love sports and love his community so much?
Well, he's always had a love for baseball. Even before he got the Trappers, he was doing the Alberta Senior Men's League with the Edmonton Tigers. He was the manager there on the operational side. He's just always had a love for baseball. And the big reason why he went after baseball in particular, he wanted a professional team to come up to Edmonton because he wanted to spend the weekends or days at the ballpark with the family. So with my mom and myself, and just, kind of enjoy having a beer or a pop and a hot dog and just, have that family environment and share what he really loved. Like his first love is baseball. He loves all sports, but baseball for him was the top. He still shares stories from what he could remember about him pitching in his little rec league there and all that. So he just had the drive to bring professional baseball for the family environment.
It's kind of amazing looking back on that journey too, because Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, and Calgary all had teams in the Pioneer League initially, and then I know Edmonton and Mel had tried to get a team in that circuit for a while, and it just never seemed to work. And so I'm curious, looking back on it, did he ever share the story about why he thought AAA would be a good option? Like, let's go above and beyond what the other communities are doing.
Yeah, so he originally tried to get the Pioneer League team up here. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. And when he heard the Ogden A's were open, he took a chance and he connected with Peter, and it eventually worked out that they bought the Ogden A's. It was Peter that bought the Ogden A's, and planned to move it into Edmonton and move it into the old Renfrew Park there.
What made him believe that high-level ball could actually work in Edmonton?
I think his just love led him to making it go. And a little funny story is, and not many people will ever know this, but Peter, when he was buying the team, he was always saying to my dad, it's like, you're going to be the general manager. My dad's like, I don't want to be the general manager. My dad was working in sales, advertising with the Western Producer at the time, and he was just comfortable with where he was. And it took 4 tries from Peter to finally have my dad finally accept to become the GM of the the future of the Trappers there. And his love for making it a family environment, I guess keeping what he wanted to bring for himself, I believe was what made that become a success, because it was always a family environment. I mean, when we were in the old ballpark, we had a lot of friends and family that worked. Like I worked my way up from selling peanuts and popcorn to the grounds crew, but we also had my cousins working and friends of the family working, and everybody just pitched in. So it was like a very family oriented place to work as well. So I think that translated out into what we brought to the community. So his goal of, originally bringing my mom and myself out for Sundays and just having a, beer and a hot dog, enjoying a nice sunny day, he always kind of kept that in the back of his mind and wanted to always make it very family friendly and always a good time to come out to the ballpark.
Speaking of family, I assume you mentioned the fact that you worked your way up in the organization, so to speak, but do you have favorite memories being around the ballpark? Things that really stood out to you during your years at Renfrew, and then all across when it became TELUS and eventually now Remax?
Yeah. there's quite a lot of memories, and it's funny because a bunch of us will get together and we'll start sharing those memories. But like back in the kind of Renfrew, John Ducey days, the ballpark was a little bit smaller and it was a little bit like older and starting to fall apart. So there was things that, some of the things that would be kind of crazy. Like there were sometimes the lights wouldn't work properly and you'd have to go bang it with a wrench on the side and it would kick on the lights. And, just everything from pulling tarp when it's a torrential downpour to, in the old ballpark, it didn't have a really good drainage system. So if we missed not putting the tarps on one night, we would have to, and we'd come in the next day and there would be like a puddle literally from first base to third base, and it wouldn't drain. So we would have to like basically drain it ourselves and then not almost, but most of the time burn the field. Oh, and this is back in the 80s. And the fire department was right there, and we'd have to let them know, but we had to dry out the dirt because it wouldn't absorb properly. So there was those memories. We used to have the lucky door contest, and the players back then were a little bit different. They were more kind of engaged with us because, it wasn't the business it is nowadays. And they used to do practical jokes. Like we had the lucky door contest, and they put a pig in there one time. It was a hot day, and I think we got it like around the fourth or fifth inning when we do the lucky door contest, and then like you open the door and this pig's running around the field. So it was like a little bit more kind of like a fun, more maverick back in the old ballpark. The new ballpark, I think some of the memories were the opening of the ballpark and what it brought for the city, because at that time there was a lot of excitement around a new stadium and the unique design. Peter had the idea of the suites on the bottom. So that brought it a little bit of a different feel to a ballpark that, wasn't really common out there. Mm-hmm. And, I remember the first game and getting the ballpark going, and just, I was upstairs helping in the press box, running the music, and just to see people really excited and engaged. And we had like a whole new sound system up there, which we could engage with the fans and, have them engage a little bit more. That was cool. And then the last day was, it was sad to see the Trappers go. So those memories are kind of there, but it's one of those things that, for me will always live on, because there's things that people don't know, like the way Telus Field sits right now is because of Mel. At the time, there was a main sewer on one side, and then the two streets, and then the power plant on the back. And at the time, the architects were like, this won't work. And he used to sit like every night and kind of scaled out how it would work. And how it sits is because how he was so persistent on making it work, because that's the only footprint that we had, because we didn't have enough money for, to build it in other places and rip up a whole bunch of other stuff, infrastructure to make it work. So, when I drive by that ballpark or I go to the stadium for the Riverhawks games, for me, it's always a pride, because not many people know that, the way that ballpark sits and the way it's there is a lot because of my father, just persistent and hours upon hours trying to figure out how to make it work. And he did. So
he absolutely did. In between 1981 and 2004, there also happened to be a lot of guys who came through with big league expectations and some really good performances. You think about Tim Salmon as an example. You think about Jason Giambi as an example. You also had 4 championships to the Edmonton Trappers' name as well. Looking back on it, whether it's you, whether it's your dad, were there favorite moments or favorite teams or favorite players that you saw come through?
Oh, goodness. I think, the first championship was always a special one for, I think, everybody, not only for my father and for the family and the people who work there, but I think also for the city of having, the one thing I kind of got to learn over the years that a lot of people didn't realize the caliber of baseball we had at the time. Mm-hmm. I think that was the one thing, and to be, one step closer to the majors and win your league, I think was pretty special. So the first championship is always kind of a special one for us. Having the A's, like we had so many good organizations and so many good players. Like you said, Tim Salmon was a big one. Kittle was another big one that People might not remember, but we also had Steve Rogers come down for a couple of games. And I remember that was kind of like a big deal at the time because that was when the Expos were around. We had Fernando come. And it's like, there's some of these little moments that kind of just add up, that it's just one of those things that I don't think people realize fully what was there. I mean, we had, Michael Kadire come on that 2002 team. We had a lot of guys that went up to the Twins at that time. Justin Marneau came and played at the end of that season for our, because he got called up and got to come play here. So like, there's a lot of different players that came through, and it's unfortunate that it didn't work out, because it would be great to have that AAA at Edmonton now and see what the reaction would be. So.
Oh, now you're going through a rabbit hole that I would definitely go down, because you sit there and go, what if the Medicine Hat Blue Jays has stuck around all those years? Could Vladdy have played there, as an example? But that's a different story for a different day. When it comes to the ceremony, take us back to later part of September there, and you're able to be in attendance and hear your dad's name get called. Any highlights for him, maybe for you and the fam, during that induction ceremony?
Well, they put on a really good ceremony, and everybody at the hall there was so accommodating and helping, because my dad's a little bit older and he needed a little bit of assistance. So I was able to go up and for him to accept the award and again, be recognized for the work he's done. For him was just, he was happy, he was excited, and he was so thankful, that this was able to happen. And, I know there's some people who've been elected to the Hall of Fame that are no longer with us. So for him to be there for that, it meant a lot to him, and it meant a lot to us. And just the staff there was first class and everything. So we were appreciative. The dinner was great, or the lunch, I should say, was great. Lisa Miller did a great job as MC. So it was, it was a great day, and it was a fun day to be there and experience that.
You've kind of alluded to it a couple of times, but if there's one message maybe that you could send to Albertans about the contributions of your dad, maybe one thing that you'd love them to know that maybe they didn't know about, maybe there's that, behind the scenes look at what your dad did over the course of his time in baseball in Edmonton, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I think it's just that stadium being built, back in 1995, at the time when it was challenged, because they were trying to get a stadium to meet, at that time, minor league baseball's standards. With that being kind of built, it was the hope that, Calgary could have got a new stadium. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. But I think that would be, my father brought in like a high level of professional baseball, as high as we can get without being, in a major U.S. city or in a Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal. Brought in a high caliber of baseball for, the family, and trying to bring families together as well. I think that's where that would be something I would like to leave them with.
Mm-hmm. Final question for you here, Darin. What do you think your dad's most proud of, looking back on the journey of baseball in the Edmonton region?
I think the success the Trappers had over the 24 years. I think he was there for 22. I'm trying to remember now, but pretty much in the time that he ran the Trappers, there was 2 years that they did not make money, and every other year they were profitable. Everybody, it was good. So, yeah, I think that would be it.
Well, Darin, really appreciate you taking the time, taking a trip down memory lane with us and sharing your dad's story and sharing your story as well. Congratulations to you and him, and especially to Mel for being inducted into the Alberta Sports Hall of Fame. Again, thank you so much for joining us here on the show.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that.
Thanks again to Tracey Kinsella, Brenda Lizzi, and Darin Kowalchuk for joining us this week. And again, congratulations to the entire Alberta Sports Hall of Fame class of 2025. We're not done yet, though. Join us next week as we'll hear from fellow inductees Orr Franchuk and Dr. Randy Gregg. So subscribe now wherever you get your favorite shows. As always, a tip of the cap to our Platinum supporters for all they do for us and for the game in our province. The Okotoks Dogs, Under the Light Sports and Entertainment, and the Western Canadian Baseball League have been gracious in helping us tell our stories. For more on our tremendous teammates or to join our roster, head to albertadugoutstories.com/supporters. Until next time, thank you for all of your support online, on social, and on air of Alberta Dugout Stories.